Boy, sometimes if your shoes aren't tied and your I's aren't dotted and your T's aren't crossed, it becomes 7 o'clock. And so I just want to welcome everyone to At This Moment with me, Angela Black, here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the number one 100% listener-supported radio station on the planet and possibly beyond. This show is here every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on Studio B, or that translates into 7 p.m. Pacific, or in whichever time zone on the globe that you exist. I'm sure you can do the math. So now, in order to keep this truth boat floating, the way to do that is, of course, to find a donate button at the side of the chat room. If you're at our homepage, freedomslips.com, just hit chat and enjoy the ride. I can't even explain how awesome the chat room is. So there's a donate button on the side, or one at the top of the homepage, which is, again, freedomslips.com, and you hit Site Support tab. And you can find yourself looking all through on different ways to find this awesomeness. Okay, so what you can do is subscribe to the archives, for instance, because it is impossible to listen to both studios, A and B, all at the same time, all day long, and have a life. So the best bet is to subscribe to the archives for a mere $5 a month and have access to absolutely everything within like 24 hours. It's ridiculous. For eons before and for eons to come. And also, today is the last day with the silver special with the seeds. So if you make a $100 or $200 donation to the station, a one-time donation that is, you can end up with 35,000 seeds for that $100 bill and a 1-ounce silver bar. And today is the final day for that special. So I encourage you to end up with that $20 piece of metal, or precious metal, or whatever it is, because that's awesome. And then the $200 donation gets you the community seed pack, which I think has, bazillion non-GMO, non-hybrid seeds, and the $20-ish 1-ounce silver bar. So, all that being said, glad you're here. It's going to be an interesting ride tonight. We're going to be talking about geoengineering, a.k.a. chemtrails, but don't tell anybody. So, I look forward to discussing all things geoengineering, aerosol spraying, etc., with my new friend Ralph Ely, who is a close associate of Dane Wigington of GeoEngineeringWatch.org. So it should be a really great ride. Put your seatbelts on and hang out for an interesting 2 hours. We may be taking calls during the second hour. We're going to see how it goes. But if anyone's interested, you know how to find me on Skype. That's This Blue Monkey on Skype. And the call-in number for the second hour, if you're at the chat room, you can see that number at the top of the chat room. It's 310-421-4053. And if you didn't get that, you can go to the homepage and it will give you all kinds of information there. So we do encourage you, if you're listening through TuneIn or iTunes or TalkStream Live or however else you tune in. I think Shoutcast even is another way. I don't know if you can actually get there through Shoutcast. But hello to all of you in other lands. Do visit our homepage at some point. And there is a gentleman who's in the background coughing. And I think it's because he was outside, looking up today at some of the gunk falling on him. And so, God bless you. And and welcome to the show, Ralph Ely.
Living out of my show. Thank you. Hello to everybody in Revolution Radio. And at this moment, I was reticent about using the word revolution because I figured NSA would probably tag this now and it'll come in their computers. If
you're not on the list, you're not doing anything right.
That's true. Absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
So.
Well, the first time I did get an email from you, it came over as This Blue Monkey, and I thought, what the heck is that, And I thought, oh, I know what this is. One of those hot Latin American chicks that wants to date me tonight. Came up out of my spam file and got my regular emails. And then I looked further down and I said, no, here's a couple of pictures of aerosols over somebody's house. Oh, this is from Angela. Okay.
Yeah, I should have changed it long ago, but it's too late now, So not changing my moniker as This Blue Monkey, but maybe I should put my first and last name for the email recipients. That's funny. I never really.
Well, and then in your email you also said that we'd cover, I think it was the second email you sent me about times and so forth, and that we would cover the truth and out the politicians and about telling the truth of politicians, and that there was water available that was dehydrated. And when I talked to you on the phone, I said, well, yeah, we also have to cover have to cover unicorns. And you said, what? No, unicorns are real. And I thought, oh boy, I've got my work cut out for me now.
Yeah. The exact quote was, I took some pictures of some awful aerosol spraying outside of my front door just last week, and I posted them on Facebook and on Google Plus. I'm just becoming a Google Pluser. It's kind of weird. So I posted that, and I also sent it in an email to you and Dane Wigington, when our good friend Ken Keeling was putting this whole thing together. So special thanks to you, Ken Keeling. Oh, and one more thing. I do want to thank Wolf Spirit Radio for simulcasting this show tonight. JP Prometheus out there. Thank you so much. It's my honor to be simulcast on your sister station to Revolution Radio. And of course, shout out to all the staff and producers and chat room over at Revolution Radio. You guys know I love you. And okay, anyway, so the exact quote went, sure, chemtrails aren't real, and all politicians are honest, and I've got some dehydrated water for sale. And then you told me that the only thing I was missing was that unicorns are real, which they are.
Right.
They are real. Come on. You kind of hurt my feelings.
All right. I'll give you that one. Only because you talked about geoengineering and not chemtrails. That was good.
Yeah. And actually,
I try my best to do that with people, because people that want to bring up chemtrails, it conjures up the thought of people wearing little tinfoil hats and things and looking up for UFOs. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to, use the term geoengineering, which is a scientific term. Right. Although I understand the government right now is trying to find a new monocle for it, because since everybody's getting onto that bandwagon, they're going to try to change the name again. So we'll see what they come up with.
Yeah, Vita Spray. Oh, I'm glad we're having a good time. It's a serious subject matter that we are about to discuss. And, I try to find laughter in my day. And the first email I received from you, actually, you were tongue in cheek and quite witty. So I thought this will be a great match. And much thanks once again to Ken Keeling and Dane Wigington himself for putting us together. And is this your, I know you're going to be doing a bunch of radio. Is tonight your Virgin, voyage on air talking about all this?
No, I was really I have to confess, I was a rock jock back in the 60s and 70s.
That's awesome.
But then I got tired of the ratings and all those other little battles that you have to put up with, and got a real job. So I've managed different businesses and done just a lot of various things, and enjoyed myself till I got to this retirement stage. And I was enjoying retirement really well until one day I looked up and I thought, oh my God, what's going on? That's not the sky I remember. What's going on? So then I just started getting involved, and the first person that I got involved with was Dane. And we probably, since I'm pitch hitting for him tonight, I probably should maybe get into a little bit about him, since people don't know about Dane Wigington or geoengineeringwatch.org.
Sure.
All right. Well, Dane was an executive and a researcher with Bechtel Power Corporation, which is a renewable energy corporation. And he actually retired early because he didn't like the direction that company was taking. He never got into the particulars with me, but from what I know about Dane, if you're not telling the truth, if you're not doing right by everybody, then he distanced himself. He doesn't want to be involved. So he bailed out of Bechtel Power, came up here to Northern California, near Shasta Lake, and actually bought a mountaintop and said, I'm going to become self-sustaining. And so he did. In fact, his house was featured in one of the major magazines about a solar independent living type house. And so he put in an array of solar collectors and went just totally off grid, and decided that's where he was going to be, and it was remote enough that if everything else went to doo-doo in the world, he'd still be okay. But unfortunately, after a couple of years, there wasn't enough sunshine coming through to keep his solar array up and going. And he said, what in the heck is going on? So he started looking up more and more, and he started being the researcher he is. He started checking water runoffs in lakes and streams and snowpacks and all sorts of things. And in that quest, he started meeting retired Fish and Game and Forest Service biologists up here in Northern California, and some researchers and some scientists, and a neurosurgeon and a few other people that some of those people are still active and the others are retired. But they were all coming to the same conclusion that, they're dumping a bunch of stuff on us, and it's making our skies not good. So Dane not to be one that puts up with that kind of thing. He developed the website, GeoEngineeringWatch.org, and now he is balancing this huge global ball, if you will, about the subject it's entirely around the world. And he's the man that, fired it up, and much to the chagrin of some of the people that don't want the cat out of the bag and that information out in the public, he's the boy that's doing it. And there's a bunch of us that are finally waking up, getting our eyes open, and decided, if we're going to survive, we need to pitch in and do something. So that's Dane's story right there.
And you did your own research and then found that you resonated with Dane very much and decided he made a lot of sense. Yes?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff on the internet and looking, and I ran across, why in the world are they spraying? That award-winning video.
Absolutely.
Over about an hour plus. And I saw that on YouTube, and out of all the things I had looked at, all the debunkers and everything else, this made sense. It's like Hemingway said, a truth has a certain ring to it. Well, it rang, and I picked up on it, and I searched GeoEngineeringWatch.org, that website, for going in probably 5 days, and then I was so emotionally and just totally drained from all this information. It was an overload that I simply had to take a day off. I couldn't deal with it anymore. I was just overwhelmed. So I did that, and then I finally reached out to Dane. I did send him an email, but being the busy guy he doesn't quite get back to you right away. So there was his local address on the website, so I mailed him a letter. And he called me in a couple of days, and he was very calm. He was very measured, very factual, and very inviting to, get involved. Any way you want to get involved is fine with me. And so I said, well, yeah, I'm going to look into this some more, and, whatever I can do to pitch in, I'll be happy to. So that was my beginning, starting in with Dane, and now and he's still that way. He's very, he's not what you would call a leader. He doesn't give marching orders. He just says, whatever you can do to help, go for it. Everybody needs to get up every day, move the ball forward every day a little bit more. And it can't be done by one person or just a handful of people. It needs to be done by everyone that's aware of what's going on.
Yeah, the power of social media can be used for positivity in this instance, especially. Because of the exponential level of communication, it is important. And so I did post this on Facebook tonight, et cetera. A lot of people get caught up in their social media world, et cetera. But in my opinion, causes like this, and it's not even a cause, it's truly essential, true life right now, everything that matters, right. Breathing and and life on Earth. And if we can use the crude medium of social media for getting the word out there, then that's also awesome. And what's cool about that is that every once in a while it'll pick up a new individual. I talked to somebody on Facebook that I'm friends with. I met her through someone else, and she really had no idea about geoengineering, and said, I really thought they were just contrails. And actually 3 right. people in the last week that I have spoken to, 2 here in Tahoe where I live, and one person on Facebook. All were still quite new to the concept. They had been looking up all of a sudden. They are seeing something different than what used to be in their own skies. And, what used to be blue and beautiful with real looking cloud things. It's funny. Every once in a while I'll look up and I'll see something that resembles a real cloud, and I make note of it. And that's odd. Just the fact that I have to make note of that.
You want to rejoice.
And then again, is it a real cloud? Who even knows? But yeah, I welcome anyone who is new to the concept of geoengineering. It's here. It's real. It's really difficult to disprove. You and I were talking, Ralph, about GreenPeace making that outrageous statement recently on their website that they just didn't have enough information right. to support researching geoengineering any further. GreenPeace.
I'm afraid our friends at GreenPeace and the Sierra Club and those types of organizations, they get so much mega monies from all these different other organizations that are, in with the group, so to speak, that they don't want their funding cut off, so they don't want to say anything that might offend somebody that gives them money. So it's the point where their whole thing is about raising money. It has nothing to do with really getting down to issues. I mean, they will take on issues, but they tend to be fluff issues that are, kind of easy to handle.
Yeah, that is true. And it's all part of the same agenda. If we jump all around, the CDC is very controlled. The World Health Organization is very controlled. These types of places, right. There's nothing real coming out of the, quote unquote public relations / public yep. policy that they extend. It's not real. What is real is what's falling down out of these horrible aerosol spraying planes, et cetera. So let's see.
We were talking about the people thinking these are condensation trails, and what they don't realize is the modern jet engines, they do not have that capacity to make those trails anymore. If they are at the high altitude, they're just for a short period or short distance, and up there for a short period of time, and then they just dissipate. These guys don't dissipate. They just, as they spray, they get whiter and whiter, and all of a sudden then you've got that gray, sticky, murky day outside, and with no sunshine, you got a lot of UV rays coming through, burning the heck out of you, but no real sunshine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the sky is often
son,
like milky.
Talking about the planes, my son, he's a tech, and he works on big jets, and he's at a prominent West Coast airport. And when I first, this was still part of my journey into this geoengineering question, was I called him and I said, "What do you know about this stuff and the spraying and all that?" And there was this long pause, and he said, "Dad, you don't want to know." I said, "No, I want to know. I wouldn't ask you if I didn't want to know." He said, "No, you really don't want to know." And I said, "I really do want to know now." And so we kind of had a little going back and forth. And I said, "You know me well enough that, I'm going to find out anyway. So you might as well just tell me and make my life easier." And he said, "Well, all right, what I do know about it is that two of my guys that I work with, and they came from other airports, they have worked on these planes that have the delivery systems on it that spray this stuff." And I said, "Oh, really? Tell me more." And he said, "Well, my one guy, he worked at the big airport in Salt Lake City, and they had a big jet come in. It was pure white, just numbers on the tail, and they wouldn't allow them anywhere near it. The crew chief came down the steps, would not allow anybody near them until they wouldn't even talk to them by their operations center until they signed a non-disclosure statement. So once everybody signed this non-disclosure statement, then they went on to say, "Yeah, this is we have some problems with our guidance system. It's a Boeing. It's a fairly new plane, and it's not acting right." And so they went up inside and they looked and they said, "It's kind of a little bit higher than our pay grade is going to allow us to work on." So then they had to call Boeing, apparently, because about 6 hours later, somebody flew in an executive jet from Boeing. They plugged a couple of panels in, and they were off and running. But what they did see when they were near this plane, that they told Mike about, they did see nozzles. They did see some configurations that obviously put something out over to the jet exhaust. So there were just multiple areas where things could be sprayed out. Mm-hmm. This ostensibly was also a refueling tanker, this plane supposedly, but it had hardly any windows, which the tankers don't. But where the boom normally drops down to, say, go, nozzle into a fighter to give it more fuel, there was no boom. There was just like this nozzle spray thing there, and that was it.
Wow.
So the other, and the second guy, same scenario for the most part. He worked at another airport. They didn't say where, but this was a big gray, just plain gray plane that came in, military type. Same thing. Crew chief came down, had to sign non-disclosures. They had some problems with one of the thrusting in some of the engine or something, and they got that taken care of. And the guy said when he went up inside, apparently to really look what was going on, he couldn't see back in at all. It was just totally blacked off. But the bottom line of all this disclosure stuff is the kicker on the non-disclosure says that they can use that. It says that the non-disclosure can be used in a matter of lethal force to enforce it.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Yeah, basically they're just telling you, you
talk, you die.
Shot the back of the head.
Yeah,
exactly.
And or your family. And a lot of them don't have families. A lot of these chosen pilots and especially the pilots, but there's obviously, hundreds and if not thousands of tech people as well, at least in the, high hundreds. There's got to be. There's a lot of planes. I listened to a YouTube interview, of a person who was reading a message sent through an indirect party from a chemtrail pilot. Or a geoengineering pilot. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the whole, I can't say chemtrail anymore, which I still will. But I think I'll.
Well, they did a good job selling that to us, and because they want people to use that term. They want it as a conspiracy. They don't want it as fact. So that just pushes it in that direction.
I see. Yeah, I got you there. That makes sense. So this pilot had come through, much to the danger of his life, and said that most of the pilots that he knew, were definitely single men, or possibly women, but single people without families, because if you have a family and you have to sign a non-disclosure, and then you have a change of heart somewhere along the way, you're screwed. You can't do it. They've got your and what's bizarre is that is exactly what that pilot said on this YouTube interview. I don't know. I think it's something the title of the YouTube interview is like Chemtrail Pilot Tells All or something. So if you guys want to look it up, the listeners out there, it's an interesting archive there. So that's what the guy was saying, was that you pretty much sign your life away literally. So. Well,
I did spend right after high school, I went into the Air Force, and I can tell you firsthand the compartmentalization that happens. And when they slap security on something and call it classified and say it's secret, that's it. You don't talk about it. And I signed things that to this day I'm apparently not supposed to talk about. If I at one point I actually sent a letter asking, was I released from some of this? And I never got an answer back. So that was years ago, and I assumed that it's that way. But what I found was when they classify something and they compartmentalize it, there's no ability. Because to put it in simple terms, you've got one division that say makes a bolt, and you have another division that makes the washer, and you got another division that makes the nut. You can be Mr. Congressman and come in to the bolt division and say, hey, what you guys got going on in here? And go, geez, I don't know. We're just making this bolt. Well, what does it do? Don't know. It has to go over to an assembly division. He goes to the washer division, he gets the same answer. The nut division gets the same answer. Has no idea what it does. Goes to the assembly division and says, hey, you guys are working on a whole bunch of stuff here, a bolt, washer, and a nut. What does all that do? Don't know. They haven't given it to us yet. So they can play this game all day long, and the accountability is just not there. So they can make their own rules. They can change the rules. I was talking to a prominent attorney here in Reading, where I live, and I've been sending her videos and things about geoengineering right and left, and we were talking on the phone the other day, and I said, I was making a comment, and she said, well, let me ask you, why are they doing this? And I just almost dropped the phone. I said, what? You asked me that after all the stuff I've sent you? And she kind of said, well, I just don't have very much time, and blah, 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 blah. And she said, I just don't understand this compartmentalization, secrecy, and everything. And I said, Nancy, it's the same as when I was in the military. If you were in a program and you were in a certain compartment, and you had an earache and you put a cotton ball in your ear because of the earache, that cotton ball was classified because it was part of a project. I said, that's how goofy these people, can be. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. There's a special trash for that cotton ball.
Oh yeah. And, so, you can't fight it. It's just no way around it.
Now, Dane was in, your colleague Dane Wigington was in both those productions, was he not? What in the world are they spraying, and why in the world are they spraying? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, and if you guys haven't seen those videos, I highly recommend it. So much is explained in those videos, and that was done by I think it was Scott Stevens, Michael Murphy. I'm not sure if that's and Dane. And so everybody should really check out those videos if you don't know why and you don't know what, because it's a great start.
Yeah, and just be forewarned, you're going to be in an emotional roller coaster all the way through that hour plus that you watch this information. Mm-hmm. I went through from anger to disbelief back to feeling great. I had all this information. Now, what do I do with it? There's all these mixed feelings.
Oh, I went through immense sadness and depression.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just almost down to the point of crying at times. I'm just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the more research I did, a lot of this was not only the videos I saw and the reading I did on various sites, but I've lived in Northern California for most of my life, and I just realized with the observation, as I said earlier, nothing is like it used to be. And I went out and I looked, and we've got trees and the brush and all the other vegetation around here is dying. The lichen on the side of the trees, it used to be up and down, where the shade is, not there. Some people call it moss. Our soil here is absolutely neutral over to the acid scale, way off the grid.
Yes.
I know people who are trying to grow gardens right now, and they simply cannot get stuff to grow unless they, run down and get a liquid fertilizer made by Dow, which in itself is toxic, and dump it
Monsanto.
on, and then they'll get some growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they get some growth.
And that's part of it. That's part of it.
And then the fish, all of our fish in our lakes and streams up here, they're dying.
Yes.
And all the other aquatic life, the bugs and the caddisflies, the one, who's the fellow, I'm trying to think of he's retired from the Fish and Game and the Forest Service, biologist, Mendola, Dr. Mendola. Yeah, he just recently did an autopsy in 3 of the different counties here on over 200 fish. And when he cut open the fish and examined the bellies, there's nothing in them. They're dying of hunger. There's no bugs. There's no flies. There's nothing natural for them to eat. There's no green slimy stuff in the edges of the water for them to nibble on like they like.
Wow.
Yeah, we have bees and we have butterflies and birds that we used to just have. I mean, it was almost annoying to go outside and try to talk because there was so much noise from the birds, and it's just nil or hardly any at all.
It is true.
I think I saw two butterflies like last year, and I've seen one so far this year.
Yeah, there's been a major monarch die-off. That's correct. And, of course, the bees, dying off completely because, the nanoparticles that are traveling to the plants and the soil, obviously, when ingested by these small animals, these insects, it's a huge impact. It basically, and it's working hand in hand, of course, with the fertilizers, the Monsanto, thing. And basically these animals, these insects, which for some odd reason it seemed like a good idea at some point years and years and decades ago or something. But truly, we need those animals. We need the insects. The whole ecosystem is based on balance. And if all of these little insects are dying because, if you look at the ratio of that nanoparticle of aluminum, cesium, strontium, barium, whatever's in it,
yep.
And you watch that insect ingest that, that insect doesn't have long to live at all if it can do any of its natural job in the equation.
Right. And plus most of the insects, a lot of them are only around for a couple of days, and that's their life cycle. So
right.
It doesn't take much to push that to zero.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And then the runoff that I mentioned too with, when they did the snow plugs from the Sierras, they pulled out, they were just loaded with aluminum and heavy metals, and the streams and the lakes, at points, right up above Shasta Dam. There was one sample taken out of Shasta Lake right up above this huge dam that we have up here that makes hydroelectric. When they got down there, it was just loaded with heavy metals. And of course, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, those metals are coming up from the mines from when they flooded years ago, from the mines up in the mountains there. No, metals don't percolate up to the top. They settle down. This stuff was on top of the sediments coming in. So that's all fresh stuff. It doesn't percolate up. And
because it's a nanoparticle, it dissolves. It lays on top, but it also dissolves right into that water.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ew.
So it just, and people talk about aluminum, the aluminum is not a natural thing in the air. I'm sorry. Neither is barium. None of these things are natural. We have some that's in the soil, but there again, it's down in the soil. It's not up on the surface of the snow and in the water and that kind of thing. So, and our field workers up here are both our fed and state workers. I know a couple of those guys personally. And they were told by their supervisors, absolutely do not discuss these issues, the findings that you guys are coming up with the public, and for God's sake, do not talk to the media.
Wow.
So they've got their marching orders. Yeah, they've got their marching orders, and
see, and that's horrible. That is just horrible.
It
so
is.
Now, the retired individuals who, leave that profession and become whistleblowers, I wonder if nowadays in their, non-disclosure agreement, if there's X amount of time that is, a mandate for them not to ever speak about it. I mean, I wonder what that is. Are they ever allowed? And if they do start speaking about it after leaving that employment with the state or with the field workers, et cetera, what happens?
The people that are speaking out right now never were under a non-disclosure. For instance, Francis Magula. There's a couple of others that on the video on GeoEngineeringWatch.org. There's a video on there of all these retired guys that live in this area coming in and speaking before the Shasta County Board of Supervisors. That video is probably over an hour long, and this is a public hearing. And the supervisors, they were concerned about it on the health issue. And so what they did was pass a resolution to send a letter to all of the state assembly people, all of the governor, all of his people, all the EPA people, everybody up the federal line, right up including the president. And that was 2 years ago. And to this day, they have not received a reply back from any of those people.
Wow.
They've just totally ignored a legal government county body making an official inquiry as to, what is being done with scientific review of this. It's happening. What are the EPA ramifications? All these things, basically asking them to conform with the law of disclosure that they're supposedly have to, do, but they're not doing it.
Wow.
So it's just total quiet.
That is, it's disheartening, at the least. It's really terrible. So, okay, I'm gonna, you were kind enough to send me a pretty cool list of topics, and I think that's great. We've actually, without me even realizing it, we've been following it all along. So thank you for being the backseat driver here in a great way. I'm very much enjoying this. You're keeping me on track, and we're inspiring each other to continue this discussion, and it's so important. Again. Okay, well let's move on. Something I'm interested in is okay. So, the field workers and the federal, state workers, et cetera, not allowed to talk about it. The pilots not allowed to talk about it. Guess who else is not allowed to talk about it? The TV weather guys, right?
Exactly. I was going to just mention while I was on that other thought too.
Oh, sure.
The more I got into this too. I would get my own questions, and people ask me this now too. They say, "Well, why is geoengineering being done? Why is the military involved? Why is there weather modification? How come there's all this control and they won't talk about it?" Well, that's just it. The military would like to talk about it, but they're following orders, and a lot of these guys don't understand what's going on till they get out of the military, and then they kind of look up and they say, "Oh, wow, this is not good." Mm-hmm. But weather modification, it has a tremendous amount of influence over military involvement with the HAARP program. That's where they heat the ionosphere and the clouds, and they can set with their little radios, talk to submarines around the world down in the water, and there's all sorts of things there, and they're doing it for reasons of political control. Mm-hmm. When our government leaders can look at some of these countries everywhere we've been in for a battle lately, those people have gone through terrible droughts, terrible weather problems, and it's all because of weather control. We're telling these people, look, we have control of this, so you better do our marching orders, or you're going to be in real trouble. We're going to totally shut your water down, totally cut off your food, and you're going to be just up the creek up the creek with no water. Mm-hmm. So that's why. And just to, show you how to bring it right home here, to show you the difference between it. Look at it. In the west here, we've been mostly hot, and the cool has been in the east. Yep. We were having up to last month, we were having snow falling, in Boston. Yep. At 42 and 48 degrees, snow doesn't fall at 42 and 48 degrees. Yep. And people were coming out of their front door, and this was kind of somewhat melting, and they were seeing pieces of plastic that looked like cobwebs in their lawn. And
webbing.
And their health department, their health departments were telling them, don't touch it, it's toxic. And that's stuff that misfired when they did some of the geoengineering. That's stuff that didn't quite make it out and through the hopper, so to speak.
Wow.
So, it's very prevalent.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was just going to say, and getting back to the TV weather guys, that's, locally here, we've got one guy that's, he's pretty cool. He was told not to talk about it, but he still wants to know about it. And I still, send him information here in Northern California. We got another regional guy that is in total denial, that has assured me that he has all this schooling and all these things, and none of this is happening.
Wow.
And I've just given up. In fact, he's on he's on the disinformation list now because of his overt denials of things. So,
yeah.
But the one fellow was called in by his boss and said, "Look, all these cool graphics that you're using on your forecast, that's supplied by Raytheon through NOAA Weather. And if they take away those cool graphics and that forecast information for the next week and all these computer models, these slick stuff that you point to, on the green screen, you're going to be back to a piece of chalk and a piece of slate doing the weather because they're not going to give us these things." He said, "I've already been assured of that." And he said, "You also want to remember that, you have a family, you have house payments to make. Now get back to work."
Yeah, that's exactly what yeah.
If that's not a threat, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's funny. When I surmise, when I step back and surmise why these people in the media are lying to us, the exact scenario that you just mentioned is exactly what I rehearse in my head. Because I try to put myself in that person's. Yeah, it's called, thank you very much. It is called a paycheck. That is correct.
Yeah.
And it's called ratings, and it's called, the big agenda. It's called, if you really take it all the way to the end, it's the culling. I mean, it's truly it's the culling, because it is, okay. I'm going to step back. So there is I know we're all dead. Almost. All right. So, when they started the geoengineering projects, which was, can be dated all the way back to World War II, in certain references. And then when it, it kind of started to ramp up, to where it was a little more apparent, in the early 70s and that type of thing. I've found documents that are referring to, geoengineering and aerosol spraying, government documents that have been published on the net. So, it's not new. However, it's been, of course, ramped up, especially in the last 10 years and even more so in the last, 5-6 years. So what I wonder, I step back and I think about the original reasons, if there were any good reasons, if there were any good intentions. And, if we're going back to World War II, and we're looking at the entire thing starting from that point, then no, I really don't see any good intentions. But if it was indeed because they saw some type of, climate trend, et cetera, and they were hoping to do some type of good, because of the, quote unquote, global warming thing, that's great. But they didn't do any long-term studies. We are the guinea pigs, and the plants are the guinea pigs, and the animals, and the entire surface of this earth, especially in the northern hemisphere, from what I'm gathering, it's way more, saturating in the northern hemisphere, if not almost completely in the northern hemisphere. And if you look at the population of the planet, most of it exists in the northern hemisphere. I mean, most of it. A good chunk of the ratio of population between the two hemispheres.
Well, that's why we see it cool in the east of the United States and hot in the west, because where's most of the population in the United States? It's in the east. And that's why that'll keep those people in denial forever, because it's not hot. Interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting. Wow. So
you talk about those papers and trying to find some good. So much of this originally was done with a lot of the German scientists that came over here. In fact, I've got kind of a little pause in my brain, and I'm trying to the man that came up with the bomb we dropped in Hiroshima. What was the father of the bomb? His name?
Einstein. No, but didn't he develop the atom bomb? Okay, hold on. So.
Well, you read the theory, but I'm trying to think of the German guy that came over and actually ran white sands and did all the testing. And
okay, hold on.
Yeah, it's just not coming to me right
I know.
now. But anyway, he said that the father of the atom bomb.
Von Braun.
He made the statement that we should. Pardon?
Von Braun, Werner von Braun. Is that it?
Well, no, he was with von Braun. But those guys made the statement that the government should continue on with that program, that it was, was an excellent way to control the populace and blah, blah, blah. And they made no bones about it. But at that point, apparently there were enough people hanging around the government that had a little feeling a twinge of guilt that maybe they shouldn't do that on the people, so they never, proceeded with it. But then in 1966, in Norman, Oklahoma, which is the home of the United States Weather Bureau, there were a bunch of the people that got together in their meeting, and they started talking about just seeding clouds to make things rain and try to redirect storms, that kind of thing. And they did a little trip there locally for a couple of years and met again, and they said, wow, we can expand this. We can actually make things happen differently. And so then they expanded it to be, instead of these small little aircraft they were using, they got into the larger ones and started spraying and seeing what was going on. And they met again, and the conclusion was, well, this is pretty cool. And one of the guys said, well, yeah, but how's that affect farmers' crops and the people and things that we're spraying? And they kind of all just realized, well, we don't really know, but we're, it's so cool, we're going to keep doing it. And that's kind of the last time that they ever published any of their minutes or the conclusions of their meetings. The paper trail stops right there and becomes classified.
Wow.
So,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's when they really started stepping it up. And it started out to be something that was hopefully useful, but there were enough people on that team that said, boy, this can be used for other, we need to get the military involved and blah, blah, blah. And that's what they did. So,
yeah. Now, so at some point they realized that they were causing, major harm to the planet, to the point of almost irreparable damage. It is pretty much irreparable van damage. I'm sorry, I just said van damage because in the chat room they're saying it's Werner von Braun, who I brought up, but that's not it. If that's not it, that's who I have, is Werner von Braun. I guess that's not the guy you're referring to who developed the.
No, he was with the team, but I'm trying to think of they call him the father of the atom, the A bomb. This guy.
I digress. I don't. Well, I'll figure it out. We'll
it'll come to me at some point, probably after the show's over.
Oppenheimer. They're writing Oppenheimer. Is it Oppenheimer? No. Yes. No.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Exactly.
Well done, Rapsy, in the chat room. Woo!
Yay!
Yeah, thank you for helping us figure out the father of doom. Okay, so anyway.
Exactly.
All right, so time goes on.
So anyway, So it's in my little quest. I started poking around, and I got no response from the state assemblyman Dale here in California. No response from Congressman LaMalfa. Which really floored me because his family, they've got tons and tons of acreage that they grow stuff. He comes from an ag family in Central California. And he just absolutely doesn't respond at all. In fact, when Dane Wigington brought some studied some EPA figures to his staff showing, look, this is happening, LaMalfa's comment back was, well, we don't really consider the EPA a credible source. Excuse me?
Yeah.
That's like the cop giving the person a ticket for speeding, and you go to court, and the judge says, I don't consider the cop a credible source. It doesn't, so it just doesn't ring at all. And same thing with, if you try to get a hold of Senator Boxer or Senator Feinstein in their office, you get a generic letter that says, if the subject should ever come up for a vote, I'll take your comments in consideration. And that's pretty much it. Letters if you try to do something to the editors or comments to media on some of the websites. You mentioned GreenPeace earlier. Yeah, when you mentioned GreenPeace earlier, I sent a comment in on that. And of course it didn't get published. It just got edited out. And so that's what it is. The communication is just from the scientist and things, it just goes dead after a while. I mentioned that in my note to you that I communicated with several of the scientists here in California that have appeared on Coast to Coast radio show. Mm-hmm. And we had little chats back and forth by email, and that was fine until I mentioned GeoEngineering to them, and all of a sudden the emails stopped.
And that is bizarre, because Coast to Coast should be, a wealth of information, But ever since Art Bell left,
these guys just didn't want to talk about it. And the one guy that two of them actually asked me to please do not send me any more emails concerning this subject. The third one, he never responded, and he seemed to be the most open-minded. So he's still accepting the information. So I'm hoping that he's just thinking more and more about it. And
well, that's good.
We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, we could get into the naming of names, but it's not necessarily important.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we could. It depends. Maybe we'll see what the chat room does. And I mean, I'm not afraid to bring up their names, but it's more or less the general idea that the media on so many levels is bought. It's one of the reasons that I'm really happy here with my position at Revolution Radio is because we do have free speech. You and I are here talking about this on air to thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people right now. And that is brilliant because, and it's also why we don't have advertisers. We have promos for other shows, but that's it. And a couple of hosts will find their own sponsors, et cetera. But, there's a disclaimer that that the views and opinions of said host and or people, doesn't necessarily reflect the views of the station, et cetera. And so it's all fine. You know what? And everybody gets to say what they want. The only thing we stay away from here at, Revolution Radio is bashing, hate speech, that type of thing. So without specifying. Yep. So I'm proud to be here and not looking over my shoulder to see if my boss will let me speak about this or not. And what's interesting is that Nighthawk, the owner of the station, has a differing opinion on geoengineering, which is very interesting, but also welcomes me and others to discuss it openly the way we feel fit. So I'm very happy to see that we can agree to disagree, and of course I plan on dragging him into the truth at some point in the game. So just to finish up a quick. Go ahead.
Sure.
Oh, okay. I'll just finish up. I was leading to this earlier, and so if some of it all started with good intentions. And they didn't do any long-term studies, and the person that's coming to mind, of course, is David Keith, the top geoengineering individual on the planet, or whatever that is. So, and you wonder, do they, and he admits, that, we might lose, tens of thousands of lives, but oops, oh well. And, does admit that there are adverse effects. Let's just kind of do it and leave the problem to our kids, I think was kind of one of his, I'm paraphrasing his statement, but that was pretty much what he was saying. Yeah, which is just unbelievable that someone would say that and literally be able to sleep at night. Must be on some big pharma sedatives. Just saying. Something. And again, I'm not specifying that David Keith is on any type of big pharma sedative, but I'm saying if David Keith feels at all with a heart, if he has one, then I would think that the only way that guy could get to sleep would be on some heavy sedatives. Right. I'm not. Well, unfortunately, it just is. Gotcha. But it's just absolutely true. The media, they just come on that they don't want to know about it. Don't want to know about it. Nothing to it. Stay tuned for the Kardashians and watch them. Oh gosh. And they are just the academics. Yeah. And the academics, they're in complete denial. They just say, it's not happening. If so, we'd know about it. And the scientists, and a lot of these scientists, you got to understand that they're funded by Monsanto, Dow, and all these guys. They come into your university and they say, Professor Angela, you're doing some wonderful, wonderful work here. And, we'd like to kick you over a couple of million here in the next few years. You can hire a couple of nice assistants and continue on with your work. And way to go. Yeah. And part of your work has to do with something that I look at and I say, I wonder if Angela knows about geoengineering. So I call Professor Angela and I say, hey, do you know about this stuff? And you go, yeah, well, kind of. Let me look at it. I'll get back to you. And you get back to me and talk to me. And all of a sudden a little bit of it gets public and Monsanto comes by later on that month and says, Angela, what are you doing? And you go, what? Listen, you can't talk about that kind of stuff. If you're going to continue on this course, we're just going to have to reconsider whether we're going to fund your research these next few years. Yeah, exactly. There again, the paycheck. And then cut to a few years later, and that Professor Angela has mysteriously committed suicide. That or you were promoted to and appointed to some high position at the UN General Assembly in health or something. Yeah. What's weird is it sounds like we're talking about a plot for a movie, but truly we're talking about what's really going on. It is. It's like this giant mystery novel that you keep reading and you keep reading. And, the more answers you get, the more the puzzle gets together, the more questions are created and the bigger the puzzle gets. It's like there's no end to it after a while. So, there's just no excuse for the scientists, though. I mean, they've got all sorts of markers available to them. Our West Coast fishery was just shut down here a couple of months ago. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's why all the baby pups are coming up on the sand. They have nothing to eat. They have no anchovies. They have no sardines because the sardines and the anchovies have no algae to eat because of the UV rays coming through the water and killing it. We've got ocean currents that should be cold that are hot. We've got hot that should be cold. So everything is it's just vast backwards, and it's causing high methane levels to come up. The high UV levels. It just goes on and on. So scientists know about these things, but they just come on to it like, oh yeah, well we kind of know something's happening and we're looking into it. Don't worry, we've got your back. We'll let you know if we come up with anything. Yeah. Well, they've been trying to come up with something for 10, 12 years now, and they just can't seem to come to any conclusion with all their scientific research. Yeah, so it's crazy stuff. Just so you know, and our politicians.
Just so you know, we do have about 6 to 7 minutes, probably 6 to 7 minutes before the break. So you get to take a deep breath with me, and hopefully you'll join us for the second hour. Ralph Ely. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple more things I would definitely like to cover too, so that people are more aware. As I said, it is a big issue, and it's this giant onion that has a whole bunch of layers on it, and we're just starting to peel them a little bit here. So
yeah, it is just, it's vast, it's deep, and and it seems like it's endless. So all right, well, let's continue on. I just wanted to give you a little heads up there. Sure. About 6 minutes, maybe 5 now. So all right. Let's see. We're looking at.
The only thing that I hadn't really covered about was the politicians. Some of the things I mentioned briefly, Feinstein and Boxer, the senators, but the thing that we hear about the politicians is, their response about this kind of thing, you bring it up, is, damn conspiracy theorists, and, and then they turn around and glad hand lobbyists from Monsanto or one of the other places and take a few bucks for their next campaign. And a lot of people want to know, how come Monsanto, why are they involved in all this? Well, if you go to the U.S. Patent Office and look at all the patent listings, where it's in the hundreds now for aerosol spraying, going way back to the 50s. But if you start at the year 2000, you'll see all sorts of these patents that have been issued to these people for all these processes. And Monsanto, they hold, I think it's either 4 or 5 of the major patents that give the protocols for the spraying that they do for particle displacement. And it got so bad, of this happening, that it was killing their GMO crops. So 2 years ago, they had to re-engineer all the GMO seeds that they sell Farmer Jones down the street. They had to make it so the GMO seeds would be barium and aluminum and all this heavy metal resistant and still grow the corn without killing the crop. Right. So, they're working against their own monster, their own creation, and the monster is coming back on them, and they're trying to get out of it. So we have that, and then the military, of course, are involved. But those guys, for the most part, that we've talked to, are just doing orders. Beyond that, they just don't know anything. And I mentioned to Dane, and our agreement on that. We need to educate the ex-military guys, the veterans, and actually we need their input. We need ex-military input and participation in this whole thing. And if they're worried about non-disclosure and need to be anonymous, that can be done too. Yeah. But their input is just very, 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 any of these guys that know about this, that they're willing to talk, you all come. Yeah. So anyway, just to kind of wind up with what we talked about so far, just, all these entities in my research getting involved, they're all saying that their reply back is that, well, this is all a conspiracy theory. And that is, it is a conspiracy. But there is no theory. That's correct. They are the conspiracy. So, anyway, I would just invite people to, there again, just do their own research. Prove me wrong. Dane says this all the time. Please prove me wrong. It would be so nice if somebody could do that, but they haven't been able to do that yet. Yeah, exactly. So, I would encourage people just to go to geoengineeringwatch.org, sign on, and just be ready to spend hours and hours in a few days and check out everything. I kind of call it my University of Geoengineering online. Yeah. Because there are just literally hundreds of hours and videos available and more information than you can just absorb. It's astounding and just overwhelming at times. Exactly.
Wow. Well, you're doing such a fantastic job. I originally, of course, had asked Dane to be my guest, and he said, well, I have a colleague I'd love to send your way. I'm very busy. And I said, sure, I would love to talk about this with whomever you recommend. And it's been such a delight for this first hour, and getting to know you in the last week. It's been really great. You're very informed, and it's there we go with the break music. So everyone, we'll be right back after about 3, 4, or 5 minutes, and see you on the flip side.